right, so let's begin this meeting. I'd like to call it to order with a roll call vote. Maren
Goldstein.
The mayor.
Mayor LaChapelle.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Schmidt.
Marissa.
Marissa Carreri.
Lori.
Laurie Garcia.
Shannon.
Shannon Dunham.
Cynthia Kuzinski. Okay, we'll start this meeting. We'd like to start with public speak. Welcome to the April 28th school committee meeting. We are doing this by Zoom and having a couple of technical difficulties that hopefully are done away with now. So is there anyone who would like to say anything for public speak? I'll let Marissa tap people in.
So it looks
Nobody?
like the only person we have here is Benjamin Hersey, if he wanted to speak.
Okay.
I'm just here to listen. Thank you very much.
Great.
All right, thank you. Okay, well then we will continue on. So I'm going to turn this over to our superintendent and let her begin to talk about the COVID update.
Well, before I say that,
Okay.
what's really exciting in Easthampton, I feel like I want to start with the good news. And the good news is that our high school We the People team won the national championship. It was announced at 8 o'clock last night. So congratulations, We the People. We're really, really proud and we're really excited. It was a great team. They worked very hard. I was fortunate enough to watch one of their practice runs on Friday, and then I watched their dress rehearsal on Saturday, along with many of their families and many teachers. And it was amazing. You could really tell that these students were very well prepared. They had put in a lot of time. They had a lot of support from adults in the community, from alumni that have gone through the We the People program, just from a variety of people that came up and really put themselves out there and gave these students their time. And it goes without saying, of course, the biggest champion for these students is their teacher, their advisor, Kelly Brown, who is amazing. And she deserves a lot of recognition and praise. These students worked tirelessly in preparing for this. And I think it's worth mentioning that one of the perks of We the People when you win the state championship is you then go on to represent your state at the Nationals in Washington, D.C. And that opportunity was lost to these students around mid-March when the event was going to be shifted to an online format. But these students did not give up, and they practiced many hours. And these are kids that, according to Kelly Brown, many of them have jobs, they were doing other classes. I mean, they really put a lot of time into this and a lot of effort. And all of their hard work paid off. Just to give you a point of reference, the highest that Massachusetts has ever performed in this competition was placing 19th. And that was last year with last year's Easthampton We the People team. So to jump from 19th place to first place out of the entire country should give you some perspective of the amount of preparation these students put forward. So we are really just tickled pink. We're really so proud of these students and proud of Kelly Brown and what they've been able to do. So I think it's just an amazing feat. So we did put a press release together. We've sent it out to the papers, the news stations. We're sending it to the Boston Globe. We've sent it to the commissioner and looking for a way to send it to the governor, Mayor, if you can help facilitate that with us.
I will help facilitate that. Yes.
Thank you. So anyhow, I thought that was the most important thing I should lead with tonight. So.
Thank you. I thought you might put that further down, but I like starting with some really, really awesome news. I read that and I was really, really excited and really proud for them. That's an incredible achievement.
It
I mean,
really
truly
is.
incredible. So they did it all virtually.
Zoom,
Oh,
yes.
wow. That's pretty neat. Pretty neat. Excellent. Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay.
So let me then go on to the school closure. It's probably no surprise to anyone, but the school closure has been extended through the remainder of this school year. That was announced about a week ago. So we communicated that to our families. It was not a huge surprise as this virus continues to ravage parts of the state and parts of the country. So we understand the necessity to do that. The Commissioner of Education has just released updated guidance for schools. He did that late Friday night, so the administrators are beginning to review the documents. They're pretty extensive. And what's shifted or what's changed really is just a continuation of looking at what you're doing with an eye towards refinement and revision when necessary. So they are labeling it as a strengthening guide, just to strengthen the good things that you're already doing. It also articulates some of the, or all of the content standards that we should aim on getting through between now and the end of the school year, June 18th, knowing that we cannot replicate school in an online format. So we can't cover as much ground as we would if we were face-to-face with students. So something has to give. So we're looking at the priority standards or the essential standards, as the commissioner's calling them, and what needs to be completed in order for students to successfully enter the next grade. And that is the goal for all of these students, to move to the next grade level. And then, of course, there will need to be some adjustments that are made at the beginning of the school year to cover standards that were not quite addressed this year. So this will be a multi-phased guide, if you will, or a plan. So we are beginning to unpack that. It's a pretty extensive document. In the midst of doing all that, we're also contemplating really doing an assessment of what's working well for our teachers right now. You know, we obviously, this is new ground for all of us. There are some teachers that are meeting with better success or greater success with engagement of students than other teachers. So what are they doing that we can try to replicate across other classrooms? It's time for us, because there were no new best practices, because this was all so new, it's now really time for us to kind of take a dipstick of how we're doing, what refinements we can make in our own practices, what little tweaks and adjustments we can make. So those are some things that we're undertaking this week, with an eye towards making any adjustments to our planning at the beginning of May. So probably into next week, which is the guidance from the commissioner. So we're following that guidance to the letter, and the administrators continue to meet regularly with their staff. They continue to make great strides. Administrators are popping into classrooms when they can, Zoom rooms, if you will. We're using primarily Zoom, but we are still using Microsoft Teams to some extent. And those are a lot of the things that we're doing. So we will continue to keep you up to date on that as we make progress. We're also thinking about summer school right now. We're thinking about what the fall might look like and what adjustments may need to be made to our facility, to the way we do business. as far as ensuring safety for students once they do return to the buildings. So those are all things that are on the table for us right now, and they're part of our daily discussions. Are there any questions? about
Maren
that?
has a question.
Superintendent, could you just clarify, I feel like I've heard different schools, different ways of doing things. So I just wanted to clarify for Easthampton, what is our plan around grades in the third, not semester, but third period? And how does that relate to the first and second period grades going into a final grade for any of our students?
So it's a little bit more defined at the high school level, of course, because of transcripts and because our high school operates on a 2-semester plan. So students have grades for first semester because that ended on January 27th. So for second semester courses, they completed up until March 13th. So they had grades up until that point between January 27th and March 13th. So they had the opportunity after March 13th till the end of the term to improve their grade by doing any makeup work, makeup assignments they could get graded on, and any take-home assignments that were given prior to March 13th, they could complete and submit for grades. After that, it's turning into a credit, no credit situation, which means that students have the ability to earn a set number of points depending on how much they are participating and submitting assignments to their individual teachers. So they have the opportunity to replicate their third term grade. So in other words, if Maren had a 75 in geometry third term, he would have the opportunity to not make it any worse, but to make it better by at least 5 points. So there's a 0 to 5 point range. And that would be dependent on how much Maren did over the course of his time, how much he participated, checked in, did assignments, checked in at, office hours, that sort of thing. So we're trying not to punish students. We're trying to give them the opportunity to increase their grades, but it is really based on the amount of work that they do.
And then if you just want to speak to middle school and elementary.
Yeah, so middle school and elementary are primarily participation grades because we feel that, number one, it was defined differently in the state guidance, high school and elementary and middle. Number two, they don't have the same kind of transcript kind of system in which they're applying to college. We really want to, our priority, our main goal is to engage with children and with their families. So that's the priority. Having students engage with the teachers, participate in the classes, participate in discussions with their peers. We know that there's a huge social emotional component, particularly with younger students. So that's really the priority, is a participation grade, which will be reflected in their report cards at the end of the school year because they do have behavior kind of grades that they're given on their report cards.
And then if you could also just speak towards some of our students with special needs and what we might be doing to provide them with extra support.
Yes. So we have special education liaisons at each level that are working with the classroom teachers and the families to ensure that they're almost a case manager, if you will, to ensure that each student has specifically what they need in order to succeed. Now, we can't replicate 100% of an IEP. That can't be done given the circumstances that we find ourselves in and given all of the guidance from the Department of Education. We are to, implement as much as we can and try and do as much as we can to assist students in meeting with success. So for example, that might look like a special education teacher co-teaching with a classroom teacher on a Zoom lesson, and then being able to have a private chat with a student on Zoom or with a small group of students to make sure that they're understanding the work without singling them out in front of their whole classroom of peers. We have paraprofessionals that are also doing that same sort of thing. We have individualized reading groups, if you will. Reading specialists are taking individual Zoom lessons with students to make sure that they're getting extra one-on-one support in certain content areas.
Excellent.
So that's happening at all grade levels. We're doing virtual IEP meetings as much as possible so that we can continue to make adjustments to IEPs as needed and meet timelines. And we're just really emphasizing the communication piece with the families and providing families additional supports and resources that they might need. For our students in substantially separate programs, they have their specialized technology at home with them, like their specialized iPads with all of their programs downloaded on them, so that they can use those directly at home, just as they would at school. So those are some of the examples of things that we're doing with students.
Thank you very much for reiterating all that. I just think it's important for all of our parents and to hear what's going on in our community, to know all the work that we are still doing and how best we are being able to meet the needs of all of our children. So thank you very much.
Thank you for asking. Any
So
other
now-
questions about that? I'll go on to the school building if you'd like.
I guess just one thing real quick. First of all,
Sure.
thanks to Marion for asking the questions, and to you, Allison, for answering them. That is all excellent. My question is regarding the guidance that came out at the end of last week. You say you're going through it. I just wonder if you have a timeline in mind of when we might hear back about some of what you're planning to do with that, be it the next meeting.
Well, I will be able to share out with this committee next time we have a meeting.
Great.
And I intend to send an update next week to family. I don't think our plan will shift tremendously. I think that we will find areas that we can strengthen, because it's a learning curve for all of us. There's always things we can do to make improvements in our practice. So I think we'll continuously try to do that. And maybe incrementally between now and the end of the year. I think we'll always be trying to tweak this or tweak that. So.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Shannon? Shannon, unmute. Hold on. There you go, Shannon.
I thought you unmuted me, sorry.
Sorry.
So I'm just curious again about, you had mentioned last time we talked that there was just a handful of students that we really hadn't connected with.
Mhm.
I had a meeting last night on another matter, and it was kind of brought to my attention that there's a lot of high school students that just aren't participating. Is that something that there's going to be repercussions, or?
I will say that for students that are not participating, they may still be engaged. I know that the administration at every level continues to reach out to families. For some families, there are legitimate reasons why students are not engaged in the work. Reasons, some which may be in our control and which we may be able to try and correct and work with them on, and some which may be out of our control. A family has a house full of people that are sick, for example. Obviously, they're not going to be engaged. That's not their priority. And we do have that in our community. So there are different reasons for people not being engaged. And I think that the administration is reaching out to every family and making sure that we connect with every family. I don't think there's a family in the district that we have not heard anything from. I think we've engaged with every family. At the high school, there may be repercussions We still don't have all of our guidance from the MIAA.
Okay.
So in reference to participation in fall sports,
Mhm.
you do need to have a certain GPA. You need to maintain your grades in order to participate in sports. So we're still awaiting that guidance. Again, the season was just fully canceled last week, so they really haven't given us that yet. We are looking at, students, and we had a student today that we were talking about, a senior, and it was a question of whether they were going to be able to get a competency determination from the Department of Education in order to get their diploma at the end of the school year. And so we're learning things about some tweaks that need to happen in order for our students to succeed. And so we're working on that. Some students, while they may not be engaged with a classroom teacher, they may be engaged with a counselor. And, so there are different ways that they're reaching out to staff members. And so that's one thing I will say. The other thing that I will say is this week, I've asked the administrators to assess students that are not engaging in classes, to have the teachers reach out and find out if there are any obstacles that we can help to address. One that we foresee coming very soon is next week, or I should say by mid-May, the Charter Spectrum free internet that was for 60 days is going to run out. And for many families, they're not going to be able to afford picking up that internet cost. So we're looking at how can we address that obstacle. And one thing that we're going to be doing within the next week is adding Wi-Fi to all our school building parking lots, so that if people need to go to a parking lot just to download assignments, then it's there and it's free. Because remember, there are a lot of places of business that are not open right now. The library is not open right now. So we're trying to address obstacles. And that may be another reason why students are not engaged. There are obstacles that are preventing them from being engaged. So we're really trying to unpack that and really see if there are ways we can even just make small inroads. Maybe if they're not doing assignments, but maybe if we can just get them into a Zoom session where they can see their friends, that might be a mental health piece that would really help them. So those are the things we're trying to drill down on right now.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting messages that my internet's unstable of all times. How ironic is that? Can you hear me, or am I dragging?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, I just wanted to say that the issue that Shannon brought up is an issue I brought up during our last meeting. It's not just pertinent to our district. It's not just pertinent to our state. It's a global issue. I'm in contact with family and friends in Spain, with educators who, I have a friend who actually is teaching now in Hong Kong. It is extremely difficult to engage students. I had this discussion with 3 of my classes today. Some of my most diligent students are not doing their work. They don't find that we are really having classes, no matter how much work the teachers are doing, no matter how good their Wi-Fi is. They do not see these as real classes. So the teachers, and I can speak from my personal experience, we are doing all we can to engage students. And then these issues are coupled with the problems that Allison mentioned. I volunteer my services to speak to Hispanic families who can't even understand what's being posted in English. I call home and I speak to them in Spanish. And a lot of the times their kids are sleeping. All of these students think that this is a time that they don't have to engage. So while internet is a problem with many students, with other students, it's just trying to tell them this really does matter. But it's hard to do that when you don't have a true face-to-face interaction in the classroom. So I just wanted to say it's not just Easthampton. And I think the grading matters a lot, as I brought up 2 weeks ago, because I'm getting messages from my students, even though I'm using the standards-based rubric, if I put a need for improvement or an unsatisfactory with notes on their work, telling them how they can improve it, that it's not a final grade, all they care about is the grade on Power School. And they're saying what's wrong with it because they don't even read all the comments that we're putting in. Because our students are really brainwashed in our society just to look at a grade. That's why a lot of teachers, college professors, as I'm sure Marissa will tell you, hide the grade within the comments in the paper just to get the students to read what we want them to do to improve. So I think that parents, caregivers, teachers, administrators, we all have to try to get the students on board globally.
So I would just piggyback with what Lori said. Our school district's having the same issue. Every teacher, every school district that I'm aware of is doing everything they can. They're using their guidance counselors and the principals to reach out to families, and their adjustment counselors, and the teachers are making phone calls. Everybody's doing what they can. And one of the things we talk about every week is families have a lot on their plate. They're out of work. They're worried about money. They're worried about, will they have a job when this is over? When can they go back? Are they healthy? How are they going to stay healthy? How are they going to get groceries? How are they going to get their meds? So with the stress of families are under, we're trying to get all the kids to engage. And what I'm finding is that when the kids are able to engage, they feel better. Once you can get them to start coming into class, they begin to feel better because they feel like they have a routine and a connection again. But it's getting those kids to be able to do that under the family stress. And my only thing is that I think every district is doing absolutely the best that they can to figure it out and to nurture. That's the job of school, is to nurture and educate.
Dr. Leclerc, if I can just ask two more questions too. Just so one thing you brought up, I remember we talking about that there's some students who just aren't able to get internet access. Have we been able to connect with all of those students in terms of looking at book resources to be able to provide them still with materials? I'm going to assume that's a yes, but can you just confirm? Okay.
Yes, and packets of materials. Mm-hmm.
Great. And then the last question actually for Mayor LaChapelle, I'm curious if there's any statewide effort to try to coordinate with Spectrum because of this 60-day limit that they've put on their support of schools. Obviously, that's got to be something bigger than just Easthampton to push on them, but has there been an effort to try to get them to extend that now that the schools have been extended through another 6 more weeks of no school or 7 more weeks?
On my mayor conference call, yes, there is a push to do that for all the cable companies throughout the state to do another 90 days. I have not seen anything in writing about it, but also something around AT&T helping students who don't have internet or odd doing the mini MiFis, like the portable hotspots.
The hotspot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I actually was looking around the internet and all the documents to find that for today's meeting in case there's thing. But conversations around cable access being extended, especially for families with members in school, are going forward. Certainly as soon as we hear anything, or Commissioner Riley gets a note out to the superintendent. But I feel positive that that's going to happen,
okay.
At least through June 20th or 25th.
Excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? No? Okay, on to building.
Sure. So I would just like to report that the construction project was granted an exemption from the city last week that was approved. So the building project is back on, and it resumed, I think, late last week. Everyone is really eager to get back to work, and they are taking safety precautions to ensure that all of their workers are staying safe while on the job site. We're fortunate compared to many other projects. Our work is still outside for the most part and not in confined spaces, so our workers can be more spread out. So that definitely improves our safety. But Mayor, I don't know if you would like to add anything to that. We're really thrilled that the project's back on.
Yeah, as I am as well. Big thanks to Colliers, and also Fontaine Brothers really came back with a strong safety plan above and beyond. Think that safety plan is going to be posted on the building inspectors page, but I can certainly get it to members of this group. It is fortunate that right now the work is outdoors. Certainly we're watching the data of how the pandemic numbers go forward. And as the building becomes enclosed, my anticipation is that we will have a better sense of what safety precautions we'll need to do enclosed work, and be ready to do that. The Fontaine Brothers started remobilizing, I think it was the concrete, pouring of concrete and that machinery. So the movement that folks might see down there is them getting ready for a full start. Next week, they'll be in full swing. I did ask, because school is not in session now for the rest of the year, will that help them gain some time just for traffic? And, and they thought it could. I mean, they weren't saying, it's not a big deal, but it certainly is safer without cars and buses and kids all over the place. So, and they felt good about the timeline, and what needed to be done, and as far as their work, and staying at the pace that they were before shutting down.
And nobody's complaining about the middle school parking lot.
I know.
Or
Well,
the driveway.
voting. So early, right. So remember, we have an election coming up May 19th. And I don't want to take superintendent time, but yeah, and the voting location hasn't changed. So we're encouraging people to
Ample parking.
ask ample parking, and we're
Ample
encouraging people to mail the form in to get an early vote ballot, and vote by mail.
Good suggestion. Any questions about the school building project? Before I give up my turn, I would just like to, if I could have one more minute,
Sure.
I would just like to read a few sentences. One of our custodians is retiring right now during the midst of this school closure. And I just want to recognize him because, of course, we're not in school. So he's not getting the recognition that he would if school was still in session. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to give a special thank you to Stanley Safer for his 24 plus years of dedicated service to the staff and students of the Easthampton Public Schools. Stan is retiring from the position of custodian at Maple School on April 30th, 2020. Thank you, Stan, for your hard work and your commitment to the Easthampton Public Schools over the years, and I extend my wishes to you for many years of good health and enjoyment in your retirement. So congratulations, Stan. And I'm all set, Cindy.
Great. So Marissa, I'm going to turn it over to you for warrants and then payrolls, and we'll do roll call votes for all of that.
Well, very happy retirement to Mr. Stan. I have many drawings of him that my son Oliver made as like a kindergartner and first grader. Mr. Stan was just
So
his
cute.
favorite person at Maple. So I wish him a very happy retirement. I'm so thankful for all his service. So I would make a motion to approve the accounts payable warrant dated, sorry, I gotta move this closer so I can read, April 23rd, 2020, in the amount of $234,727.62.
I'd like to second that.
Okay, and a roll call vote. Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle. Oh, you're on mute.
Mayor LaChapelle, aye. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
okay, and Cynthia Kuzinski, aye, and Marissa?
Marissa Crary, aye.
Okay, so next one is school payroll.
So I would make a motion to approve the school payroll dated April 23rd, 2020, in the amount of $510,632.06.
I second that.
Okay, and a roll call vote. Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt,
Jonathan?
aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Crary, aye.
and Cynthia Kuzinski, aye. Excellent. So now I'm looking at our finance subcommittee update. It says just the minutes. Okay, sorry, I have it printed really tiny, so that's just you asking for approval. I'll turn it back to you, Marissa.
No update, we're just voting to accept these minutes, or?
I don't think we have to vote.
No, okay, they've just been submitted. Okay,
Okay,
very good. Do you want to move to the regular minutes?
Or do you have an
Yes.
update, Maren?
yeah,
I don't have any update. I do actually owe some more minutes in, so I will get those in this week so that we can go ahead and approve those along with the cat fur that Shannon has.
It's killing me.
That also I'll get the additional minutes in from the budget process this week, so we can have those approved next week.
right. On to you, Marissa.
So I would make a motion to accept the minutes from our regular session on March 3rd, 2020, and then we'll withhold the executive session minutes until that matter is resolved.
I'll second that.
Okay, Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Jonathan
Jonathan?
Schmidt, aye.
Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Crary, aye.
and Cynthia Kuzinski, aye.
All right, and then I would make a motion to accept the minutes from our April 7, 2020 Zoom public hearing and regular session.
I'll second that.
Okay,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
thank you. Lori,
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Crary, aye.
Cynthia Kuzinski, aye. All right.
And then finally, I would make a motion to accept the minutes from our 4/14/2020 Zoom executive session, again withholding until the matters are resolved.
I second
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Maren,
Aaron Goldstein, aye.
Shannon,
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle,
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Jonathan,
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Lori,
Garcia, aye.
Marissa,
Marissa Crary, aye.
and Cynthia Kuzinski, aye. All right, is there anything else that we need to cover before we have a motion?
Yes.
Yes, you have a budget transfer.
Right.
Oh,
Under our other, yeah.
Came in late.
Yeah, and if I could just offer an explanation,
Please.
Sure.
because we're not in the buildings, we've incurred a savings of heat. So we've moved that into an IT line to cover the cost of Zoom that we needed to purchase. This may be something that we get reimbursed for, but obviously we needed to pay be invested, and we needed to make it happen.
So Marissa?
Did I make a motion to approve the budget transfer request?
I will second
that.
All right, roll call.
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Shannon?
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle?
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye.
Marissa Carey, aye.
Cynthia Kuzensky, aye. We're getting it. As long as I don't change the order, we'll be good.
Yeah.
Anything else? I saw Shannon raise her hand. So Shannon?
So I was just kind of going through like my emails because I have a million of them. And I happened to notice a message from MASC in regards to the superintendent evaluation. Is that something that's been kind of put on hold?
Well, you have to evaluate me.
We don't want to. I know there's a timeline and I think we're
I was
close.
going to bring it up in executive session. I think you do need to start the process.
She's telling us to evaluate her.
Yes, we will do that.
We'll do that. I think it can all be done remotely, easily enough.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
long as the forms are easier than they were last year. It was terrible.
I don't think I don't think they've changed. I mean, there is an easier version. If you want to use it, I will share it with you if you'd like to review it.
Oh, that's what I was saying. I don't know
Pilot
if they changed like the online.
Oh, I don't think they have.
That was more user friendly.
Okay.
Could we have stuff sent out to us though, and some clarity about timelines and steps? I don't know if that's from Cynthia or from Sue, or who would be the best person to send some of that information out to us.
And Allison, did you send us a hard copy of the goals and everything? Do we have? I know we talked about it in the meeting.
I thought I gave it to you at the beginning of the school year, but I'll send it to you electronically.
And also your midterm, because I remember talking about it, but I don't know if we ever got.
No, we never did it. Do you want me to do a mid-year summary?
Yes, please.
Okay,
I feel like that's what we used last year.
it is. Yeah.
So things got a little crazy, and I think we have time, but I think what everybody's asking for is if we can get materials way ahead of time so that people have a chance to really process this, and then we can figure out any little glitches that we have. And then I think, we should be able to do this as well as we run these Zoom meetings. So. All right, is there anything else that anybody wants to talk about before we do a roll call vote for an executive session?
Thank you for Ben for attending with us, and for anybody else who's watching to stay engaged with our schools, even as we're remote. Hopefully other people are still being engaged. There's a lot of learning still happening in our community, so it's important information getting out there. And so just thank you to anybody who's still tuning in.
Thank you. So I just want to check really quickly with Marissa. Thanks, Ben. We got a thumbs up. Marissa, are you feeling comfortable with us staying, but just going right into executive session? You're going to be able to manage that?
So Ben, I am going to boot you out of the meeting in a moment, and Easthampton Media as well, and then I will lock the meeting so that way no one else can enter.
Awesome. So can we have a roll call vote to adjourn this meeting and go into, I guess we're not going to adjourn. We're going to go into executive session and we'll adjourn afterwards. So roll call vote to go into executive.
Maren Goldstein, aye.
Shannon Dunham, aye.
Mayor LaChapelle, aye.
Jonathan Schmidt, aye.
Laurie Garcia, aye. Should we all move rooms in our house?
Marissa Carey, aye.
Cynthia Kuzensky, aye. Okay, this meeting has ended.
No, not ended.
No, hasn't ended.
That's why I said we should go to another room.
The regular session has ended. Thank you. Thank you.
And
Correct me.
Dale, you're staying.